Maya Johnson's entire world revolved around two things: keeping her head above water and making it through nursing school alive. She worked the graveyard shift at a 24-hour diner, memorized anatomy in stolen moments between refilling coffee cups, and counted every dollar like it might be her last. Then one freezing February night, she discovered a wallet wedged into a booth cushion, thick with cash and belonging to a man whose name carried weight in the city's darkest corners. Kim Hyung-nam. She didn't realize it then, reaching for that greasy phone behind the counter, but returning that wallet wasn't just the ethical choice. It was an audition she never asked to attend, and passing it meant stepping into the orbit of a dangerous man who tested people the way others tested products, coldly and with absolute precision. Before we dive in, beautiful people, please remember to hit that like button and subscribe. It's the best way you can support us as we continue delivering captivating stories that'll keep you hooked every single day. Maya was 22 and exhausted in a way that went bone deep. Every night, she worked at Joanna's Diner, a fluorescent-lit institution that smelled perpetually of bacon grease and burned coffee, serving truckers and insomniacs on the fringes of downtown. By day, she dragged herself through pre-med courses at City College, her textbooks propped open on the kitchen counter while she scarfed down ramen between shifts. Money was always tight, rent always due, and her future always just barely out of reach. But she had a plan. Graduate. Get into medical school. Become a doctor. Help people. Make enough money that she'd never have to choose between paying for books or eating actual vegetables. Her grandmother, who'd raised her in a cramped apartment on the South Side after her mother disappeared, had instilled one rule above all others: you don't take what isn't yours, and you don't build your life on someone else's loss. Maya's natural hair framed her face in a crown of thick coils she wore proudly, and her smile, when she had the energy for it, was genuine and warm. She was the kind of person who made the diner feel a little less lonely, even at 3 in the morning. It was nearly 2 o'clock when the last customer finally left. Maya had been watching him all evening from behind the counter, this man in booth 7 who radiated an unsettling kind of stillness. He wore a suit that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe, tailored so precisely it looked like it had been sewn directly onto his frame. His face was all sharp angles and controlled intensity, dark hair slicked back, and eyes that seemed to catalog everything without moving. He'd ordered nothing but club soda, left a crisp $100 bill on the table without waiting for change, and walked out in complete silence. No small talk, no eye contact, just a transaction. The kind of man who made you nervous without doing anything overtly threatening. When Maya went to clear his table, her hand brushed against something solid tucked deep between the seat and the wall. She pulled it free and felt her stomach drop. It was a wallet, but calling it that felt inadequate. This was a piece of craftsmanship, made from burgundy leather so fine it seemed to glow under the diner's harsh lights, heavy and substantial in her palm. She slid into the booth and opened it carefully, and what she saw made her breath catch. 2 thick stacks of $100 bills, held together with an engraved silver clip. A laminated ID card with the man's face on it, stern and unsmiling. Kim Hyung-nam. The address listed was in one of those gated neighborhoods she'd only seen in magazines, the kind where security guards checked your credentials before letting you through. There was also a strange metal card with a Korean symbol etched into it, no branding, no explanation. Everything about the wallet screamed power, secrecy, danger. For $1,000. Maya stared at the bills and felt the temptation settle over her like a heavy blanket. That was tuition. That was rent for months. That was a car so she wouldn't have to take the bus home at 2:30 in the morning, constantly looking over her shoulder. It was everything she needed, right there in her hands, and the man who owned it probably wouldn't even miss it. But her grandmother's voice cut through the fantasy, sharp and uncompromising. There's no peace in stolen money, baby girl. You sleep sound when you've earned your rest. Maya closed the wallet with a snap. She had to return it, even if every practical bone in her body screamed that she was being a fool. She found a business card tucked into one of the inner slots, plain and minimal, just a name in elegant script and a phone number. No title, no company. Maya walked behind the counter, her hands shaking slightly, and dialed the number on the diner's ancient phone. Someone answered on the first ring. "Speak." The voice was male, harsh, and completely devoid of pleasantries. Maya forced herself to sound calm and professional. "Hi, my name is Maya Johnson. I'm a waitress at Joanna's Diner on 5th. I think one of your people left a wallet here." Mr. Kim Hyung-nam. The silence that followed was thick and oppressive, like the person on the other end was running calculations she couldn't see. "Hold." A moment later, a new voice came on the line. Deep, smooth, authoritative. The same man from the diner, but the casual mask was gone, replaced by something colder and infinitely more dangerous. "This is Kim. You found my property, Miss Johnson." It wasn't a question. "Yes, sir. You left it in your booth. It has your ID and cash. I wanted to call so I could return it safely." There was a pause, and when he spoke again, his tone was almost curious. "You could have kept it. The amount inside is significant. You work in a diner. You have needs." The casual assessment of her life stung, but Maya kept her voice steady. "It's yours, sir. That doesn't change just because I need money. I can hold it here until you come back, or I can leave it with my manager." "You will do neither," he said, and the command in his voice was absolute. "You will stay exactly where you are. You will keep the wallet with you. A driver will arrive in 15 minutes. You will hand it to him directly. You will not speak to him beyond what is necessary." And Miss Johnson, his voice dropped lower, taking on an edge that made her skin prickle, "You did not open that wallet. Confirm this." Maya knew he was testing her, trying to catch her in a lie. She hesitated, then made a choice. "Correct, sir. I haven't opened it. I only saw the ID through the window." "Good. Your integrity will be verified. Wait there." The line went dead. Maya hung up the phone and stared at the wallet sitting on the counter. She had just lied to a man who clearly operated in a world where lies got people killed. The 15 minutes that followed felt like hours. She locked the front door, turned off most of the lights, and sat on a stool near the window, clutching the wallet in her lap. At exactly 2:30, a black SUV pulled up outside, massive and gleaming, its tinted windows reflecting the streetlights. The passenger door opened and a man stepped out, tall and built like a heavyweight boxer, wearing an expensive leather coat and moving with predatory grace. He pushed open the diner door without knocking. "Maya Johnson." His voice was flat and emotionless. "Yes." She stood quickly and slid the wallet across the counter. "Here." The man didn't take it immediately. He studied her with cold, assessing eyes, looking for tells, for signs of deception or greed. The scrutiny made her want to squirm, but she held his gaze. Finally, he picked up the wallet, tapped it twice against his palm as if checking its weight, and tucked it inside his coat. "Mr. Kim appreciates your promptness." He reached into another pocket and placed a thick manila envelope on the counter. "His gratitude." Maya raised her hands. "I don't need payment. Seriously. It was just the right thing to do." "The directive is non-negotiable," the man said, his tone hardening. "Accept the exchange. It closes the transaction." He gave a curt nod and walked out, the SUV disappearing into the night moments later. Maya stood frozen for a long moment before reaching for the envelope. Inside were 50 crisp $100 bills. $5,000. More than she made in 3 months. But there was also a note on heavy cardstock, written in elegant script. "Miss Johnson, an interesting choice. You prioritized principle over profit in a world that rarely rewards such decisions. Your name is now associated with a quality I require. Do not spend these funds immediately. Do not mention this to anyone. You have passed the preliminary evaluation. Wait for contact. Kim H.N. Preliminary evaluation." Maya sank onto the stool, the note trembling in her hands. She hadn't just returned a lost item. She'd been watched, tested, categorized. This man, this Kim Hyung-nam, operated in shadows and ran tests on strangers, like some kind of corporate psychopath. The money wasn't a reward. It was a hook, and she'd just swallowed it whole. The next 2 weeks were torture. Maya felt eyes on her everywhere she went. She stopped taking her usual route home, started checking over her shoulder compulsively, and moved through her days in a haze of paranoia. She told no one about the wallet or the money, which she locked away in a metal box and refused to touch. She threw herself into her studies, trying to drown out the anxiety with biochemistry and anatomy, but the fear followed her everywhere, a constant whisper in the back of her mind. The contact came while she was studying in the university library late one night. It was past 11, the building nearly empty except for a few other desperate students. Maya was buried in her textbooks, trying to memorize the stages of cellular respiration, when she felt it, a shift in the air, a sudden awareness of being watched. She looked up and her heart stopped. Kim Hyung-nam was standing 15 feet away near the reference section, bathed in harsh fluorescent light. He wore a dark wool coat and looked less like a diner customer and more like a visiting professor, but his presence was unmistakable, a coiled intensity that didn't belong in the quiet library. He didn't approach. He simply waited, his gaze locked on hers, until she gathered her things and walked toward him. "Mr. Kim," she whispered, her voice tight. "What are you doing here?" He gestured toward a secluded corner of the library, a curtained area reserved for rare books. "I am confirming my assessment. You have told no one. You have not spent the money." "Good." His knowledge of her behavior was deeply unsettling. He led her to an empty table and remained standing, forcing her to look up at him. That night, he said quietly, the wallet contained operational funds and sensitive access codes. Leaving it was calculated. "I needed to identify someone in that area who could be trusted, who would act on principle. You were the only one who passed." He pulled a flip phone from his coat, small and sturdy and clearly built for security rather than convenience, and slid it across the table. "I need someone who exists outside the structures I control. Someone clean. Someone like you. Your goal is to become a doctor. I will pay for everything. Medical school, residency, living expenses. You will graduate debt-free." Maya stared at the phone, then at him. Her future, handed to her by a man who radiated danger. "What's the cost?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. His eyes narrowed slightly, and she thought she saw a flicker of approval. "Loyalty and silence. You will be my medical resource. Certain individuals in my circle require discreet care, treatment that cannot risk public attention or official records. You will go where I send you, treat the patient, and say nothing about what you see. Your professionalism must be absolute. Your curiosity non-existent." He leaned closer, his presence overwhelming. "If you refuse, you remain a waitress. Struggling, but safe. If you accept," he tapped the phone, "you walk into your future, fully funded, but you belong to me. And if you ever break silence, if you attempt to leverage what you see, I will ensure your safety and your future are permanently erased. Choose now." It was a test wrapped in an ultimatum, her ambition weighed against her fear. Maya looked at the phone, seeing her dream and the shadow that would follow it forever. She thought about the exhaustion, the debt, the endless grind. She looked into his unwavering eyes. He wasn't giving her a choice. He was giving her a command disguised as an opportunity. She reached out and picked up the phone. "I accept, Mr. Kim." The ghost of a smile touched his lips, cold and satisfied. "The initial funds are in a secure account. Begin your enrollment process. Give your notice at the diner. And call me Hyung-nam, Maya. We are partners now." The intimacy of his name on her tongue felt like a brand. He turned and walked out of the library, leaving her standing alone with her future in her hand and a leash around her neck. Maya quit the diner the next day. Her manager looked at her with suspicion when she gave notice, unable to understand how a broke student could suddenly afford to leave, but she deflected his questions with a vague story about a scholarship. She walked out of Joanna's for the last time feeling both liberated and trapped. She used the money Hyung-nam had set up for her, paid her tuition in full, bought new textbooks, and moved into a small, clean apartment near campus. Her life had been reset, her dreams accelerated, all courtesy of a man she feared and couldn't escape. She threw herself into her studies with manic intensity, trying to convince herself that the strange arrangement was a one-time thing, that he'd forget about her. The flip phone sat on her nightstand like a loaded gun, always charged, always within reach. 5 months passed in a blur of exams and late-night study sessions. The fear became background noise, a dull ache she learned to live with. Then, at 3:45 on a frozen morning while she was studying for finals, the phone rang. The ringtone was sharp and grating, impossible to ignore. Maya's eyes snapped open. She grabbed the phone. "Hello, Maya. Car will be there in 8 minutes. Put on scrubs. No conversation with the driver. Bring nothing. The patient is critical. Do not fail me." Hyung-nam's voice was different now, tight and strained with an urgency she'd never heard before. "Where am I going?" she asked, already scrambling out of bed and pulling on her scrubs. "A secure location. The driver has the address. Focus, Maya. Someone's life depends on your skill and your silence." The line went dead. 8 minutes later, the black SUV was idling at the curb. Maya climbed into the back seat, her heart pounding, her mind already shifting into professional mode. The drive took them far outside the city, twisting through dark country roads until they reached an enormous estate hidden behind high walls and security cameras. The SUV pulled into an underground garage, and Maya was led through marble hallways to a wing that looked like a private hospital. Hyung-nam was waiting, dressed in tactical black, his face pale with worry. On a gurney lay an elderly Korean man, unconscious and bleeding from a deep wound in his chest. He was attacked. "A blade." Glancing cut to the sternum, Hyung-nam said, his voice ragged. "It's close to the heart. Too much blood loss. I can't risk a hospital. He's my advisor, my most trusted confidant. Save him." Maya's fear evaporated, replaced by training and instinct. She was no longer a scared student. She was a medical professional in a crisis. "Pulse check," she muttered, her fingers finding a weak rhythm at the man's neck. "Pupil response is sluggish. I need sterile water, sutures, a chest drain kit, for fluids immediately. Where's the light?" Hyung-nam pointed to an overhead lamp. "All equipment is here. Tell me what to do. I'll assist." Maya didn't hesitate. She pulled on gloves and began her assessment, peeling back blood-soaked fabric. The wound was horrific, deep and jagged, dangerously close to vital structures. She worked for over 2 hours, Hyung-nam standing beside her the entire time, following her clipped instructions without question, handing her tools, managing the four, monitoring the patient's breathing. The powerful enforcer reduced to her assistant. When she finally finished, taping a sterile dressing over the neat rows of sutures, she looked up at Hyung-nam. "He's stable. The bleeding is contained. He needs a transfusion, but we can't do that here. The 4 fluids will stabilize his pressure temporarily, but infection is the primary risk now. He needs continuous antibiotics and monitoring for 48 hours. He cannot be moved." Hyung-nam exhaled slowly, closing his eyes briefly as the tension left his shoulders. He looked at the patient, then at Maya, and the expression on his face was raw and grateful in a way that transcended their business arrangement. "You are extraordinary," he said quietly. "You didn't hesitate. You were focused, professional, flawless. You saved him." He stepped closer and reached out, his hand gripping her forearm, the pressure strong and warm through her glove. "I misjudged only the extent of your talent." "Thank you." The contact felt profound, intimate, a human acknowledgement that sent a shiver through her exhaustion. "The driver will take you to a guest suite upstairs," he said, releasing her arm but holding her gaze. "You will not return to your apartment yet. You will check on him every 4 hours. I will handle your schoolwork. Do not leave the premises." His voice dropped lower, taking on that dangerous edge. "That man shaped who I am. You have done more than fulfill a contract. You have created a debt. And I always repay my debts." Maya simply nodded, too overwhelmed to speak, knowing that being owed by a man like Kim Hyung-nam was more binding than any contract. She had passed the ultimate test, and the passing grade had chained her to a destiny she was only beginning to understand, a future defined by silence and the electric current that sparked every time the enforcer looked at her. Her transformation from waitress to indispensable asset was complete. If you enjoyed this story, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching, beautiful people. See you in the next one.